When teenage Liverpool gangster Kevin Biji took hold of his girlfriend's Snapchat account and then sent a message out to his rival, Kevin had one objective, and that was to eliminate any and everyone that was also seeing the same female as him. So, when Kevin tried to K a rival, he was told that he would be jailed for life and serve a minimum term of 10 years. Kevin Biji sat there in disbelief, shaking his head. So serious was the crime that normally teenagers' names are restricted. However, a judge decided to lift those restrictions due to the attempted M crime and, more importantly, the cunningness and brazenness he showed in order to stab another human being in the chest twice, targeting the heart. Under no circumstances was Kevin going to finish the relationship or even share the girl with another dude. On April 9th of this year, 2024, Kevin posted his girlfriend on Snapchat and invited another teenager, the rival who she was seeing, to come over so they could have time. Kevin and the teenager he had messaged attended the same sixth form college, and it was common knowledge that the two teenagers had issues with each other over the female. Each person alleged that they were the original boyfriend. Ironically, it seemed like the only person that was not getting grief or being held responsible was the unnamed female who was seeing the two teenagers. Now, the victim, who was 16 years old, was at home at the time of the exchanged messages and explained that he was a little suspicious after receiving the messages over Snapchat. The victim replied asking the unnamed female if she was with Kevin Biji and is this a setup. Kevin, pretending to be the girlfriend, lied and says that she was not with Kevin and she wasn't seeing him anymore. Now, being a teenager, for all intents and purposes, when the victim was posed with the conundrum of having time and potentially risking his safety, the victim risked it. The victim took his bike from the back garden and cycled the distance to Hailsham Road in Aigburth. As the time passed 10:30 p.m, the victim waited for the girl in an alleyway, passing the time by watching his phone, checking both directions of the alleyway, and also pondering over the message. However, Kevin Biji quickly emerged, dressed in all black and also wearing a balaclava. Now, Kevin was heard to have shouted, "What now?" arms outstretched and a long blade, roughly a foot long, clutched in a hand. Now, it's one thing to produce a blade, but it's an entirely different matter altogether to use the item. Kevin wanted his rival dead. There were no buts or ifs. Kevin could not stand the fact that he was sharing a female with another guy, and to add salt to the wounds, the rival was from the same sixth form. Again, rumours had already been spreading and people were talking about it. The one thing Kevin did not want to be was a victim. Now, Kevin Biji, who's now 17 years old and is from the Kamala Way in Norris Green, then lunged at his victim. As he the victim for the first time, Kevin shouted, "That's my ting." The victim stumbled back, surprised, shocked, desperate, hurt, and leaking, and then the victim picked up his bike and used it as a shield to try and fend off and block further jabbing, prodding and poking. Still, Kevin tried to get to him, closing the distance and swinging wildly. Now, after being stuck for a second time, Kevin momentarily stopped. At this point, the victim took the opportunity to get on his bike and desperately pedaled away. After being stuck in the chest, in the heart area, Kevin was heard screaming, "Come back." The victim managed to cycle all the way back to his home address, and as soon as he entered the front door of his home, he called for his mom, telling her, "I've been bladed." Adrenaline depleted and the colour from his panicked face drained, the victim's mom came running to see her son in a bad way, a trail of red coming from the chest. Together with the victim's sister, the victim was given first aid. At some point before he was taken to hospital, the victim then messaged another female, who he was seeing on and off. He then let her know that he had been bladed and that he might die. This was not an understatement. He was not exaggerating his injuries at all. Emergency services were called and the victim was classed as category 1, so they made their way there as soon as possible. Once emergency services and police arrived at the scene, the victim was given first aid by paramedics. They stemmed the red and also put him in the back of an ambulance. He was then blue lighted to Aintree Hospital. Now, when rushed into the theatre, doctors discovered that the foot-long blade had made its way to the membrane of the victim's heart and fluid had pooled around the area, which could cause very real death. Thankfully, after an emergency operation and due to the expertise of the doctors, the victim managed to survive. It was literally classed as a miracle. While the victim was in hospital, the female of the victim he had messaged to say that he had been bladed and could die, she sent a message to Kevin asking him what was going on. Kevin replied by saying that he had tried to F her, and then menacingly says that he would do it to him again, meaning that he would blade the victim again if he ever tried to go around that girl. This was a person so unaware and untuned to the severity of his actions, childlike in his actions and the way of his coping with very real life situations. Now, Kevin then messaged his girlfriend telling her to hide her phone in case police came for it. Less than 6 hours after the attempted M, Merseyside police were at Kevin's front door in Norris Green. Kevin, who was not asleep at the time, heard the police knocking the door. He then took the stairs at 2 or 3 at a time and then ran out of the back door and into the garden. He then attempted to climb over a neighbour's fence. However, police were already there waiting and he was tackled to the ground. Inside the house, police recovered the balaclava and also the blade that had traces of the victim's DNA. Kevin was placed in handcuffs, arrested and then taken back to the police station. When interviewed, Kevin had prepared his story, explaining that the two teenagers had met up to discuss their issues, namely why the teenagers were seeing the same female. Kevin, taking his time, then portrayed himself as a victim, saying that he was struck first with the victim's bike and had only carried the blade for self-defense. Kevin went on to say that he had no idea that the victim had been bladed, let alone twice in the chest, and could have died, and was only saved due to the intervention from the victim's family and medical staff and the fact that he had an emergency surgery. When police built their case against Kevin, medical experts says that the only way the victim's injuries could have occurred is with a sharp razored object and by someone using a lot of force equivalent to a strong jab or hook. Police also found that Kevin had been charged with GBH previously when he was 14 years old. In court, Kevin was found guilty of attempted M, even though his defense team tried to stay on the guidelines of GBH and possession of a blade. Kevin's defense also explained that Kevin was remorseful and had expressed shame. They went on to say that the intention to K was not there and Kevin had lived a very turbulent life. His dad was a drinker, he was taken away from his parents, put in a care system, and for a period of time he had lived with his grandparents. This was a guy that was not afforded a stable family lifestyle. Now, when Kevin was given a life sentence with a minimum term of 10 years, Kevin, who appeared via video link from H&P Weatherby, shook his head in disbelief. He was then given a restraining order from contacting the victim indefinitely. The judge explained that the sentence was due to the gravity of his crime, the fact that it was planned, and also because there was very real intent to K. Does the crime match the sentence? Let me know. Stay safe.